All right, let's talk about, well, us, all of us. We're diving into the massive, sprawling story of the human population on this planet and figuring out how on Earth we all ended up where we are. So check this out. As of right now, there are more than 8.1 billion people sharing this planet. I mean, that's a number so huge it's almost meaningless, right? It's hard to even picture. But you know what's even crazier? It's not just how many of us there are, it's where we all live. Because let me tell you, we are not spread out evenly. Not even close. Get ready for this. 90%, that's 9 out of every 10 people on Earth, are all crammed onto just 10% of the land. Think about that for a second. That means huge, enormous parts of our world are basically empty, just wide open spaces with hardly anyone around. Which leads to the one big question we're tackling today. Why? Why do we all bunch up like this? What is it that pulls us into some spots and pushes us out of others? So here's our game plan. We're going to start with how we're spread out, then dig into why we live where we do. After that, we'll look at the engine that makes our numbers go up or down, check out a cool theory that explains it all, and finally, we'll ask, what's next for all of us? All right, first things first. To really get what's going on with our lopsided planet, we've got to wrap our heads around two really important ideas: population distribution and population density. Let's start with distribution. Now, this isn't just about counting people. It's about the pattern, the specific way we're all spaced out. You know that amazing picture of Earth from space at night? All those bright, glittering clusters of light? That's population distribution. It shows you exactly where the party's at, surrounded by these huge, dark, empty areas. Okay, and then we have density. This is basically how we measure crowdedness. Simple as that. You just take the number of people and divide it by the amount of land. So a place with super high density is like downtown Tokyo. Tons of people packed into a small area. And super low density, think the massive wide open spaces of Siberia, where you could walk for days and not see another soul. All right, so now we know what it looks like. Let's get to the fun part. Why? I mean, what makes some places absolute magnets for humanity, while others are, well, left alone? It turns out the answer really comes down to three big things. First, you've got the land itself, the actual geography. Then there's money, the economic opportunities. And finally, you have all the social and cultural stuff that brings people together. So let's start with geography, because for like 99% of human history, this was all that mattered. Imagine you're an early human, right? What's the number one thing you need? Fresh water. You literally can't survive without it. Okay, check. What's next? You need flat land, someplace you can actually plant food and build a shelter, not some crazy steep mountainside. And a decent climate with good, fertile soil would be nice too. I mean, these are the absolute basics, the building blocks of every civilization. But then, things started to change. In the modern world, money became a huge magnet. You find some valuable minerals in the ground, and bam, a boomtown pops up out of nowhere. But the single biggest pull? Cities, urbanization. The promise of a job, of better schools for your kids, of good healthcare, that's a powerful force that's been drawing people in for centuries. And of course, it's not all about land and money. There are powerful social and cultural reasons too. People naturally flock to places that are special to them, maybe for religious or cultural reasons. And on the flip side, nobody wants to live in a place with constant conflict or political chaos, so they leave. Sometimes governments even try to get in on the action, offering perks to convince people to settle in more remote areas. When you think about it, this all comes down to two simple forces: push and pull factors. They're like two sides of the same coin. Push factors are all the bad things that, push you away from a place. Things like no jobs, political chaos, or a natural disaster. And pull factors? Those are the good things that pull you in. Better jobs, peace, safety, a nice climate. It's this constant dance, right? What are you trying to get away from? And what are you hoping to find? Okay, so we've got a good handle on why people end up in certain spots. But what about the numbers themselves? How does a population actually grow or shrink? What's the engine that's actually driving all this change? Believe it or not, it's incredibly simple. It comes down to just three things. 1, births. People are born, the population goes up. 2, deaths. People die, the population goes down. And 3, migration. People move, and depending on if they're moving in or moving out, the population can go up or down. That's it. That's the whole machine right there. And from this, we get two different ways of looking at growth. There's what we call natural growth. That's just the number of births minus the number of deaths. Simple. But then there's actual growth, and that one gives you the full story because it also factors in migration. All the people who moved in minus all the people who moved out. And man, has that engine been speeding up over the centuries? Just listen to this.
Back in 1650, it took 1,500 years for the world's population to double. Fast forward to 1974, and it took just 47 years. 47! The acceleration was just explosive. It looks like it's starting to slow down a little now, but wow, what a ride.
So, that raises a pretty big question, doesn't it? Why the sudden explosion, and why is it maybe slowing down now? Well, to figure that out, to understand this whole journey, there's a super helpful idea called the demographic transition theory. Basically, this theory is like a roadmap. It shows how a country's population tends to change in a pretty predictable way. It says that as a society modernizes, goes from being mostly rural and farm-based to being more urban and industrial, the way its population grows and shrinks is going to change, big time. It all happens in a few stages. So in stage 1, you've got your old school, pre-industrial societies. Lots of babies are born, but sadly, lots of people die young too. So the population doesn't really grow much. Then, boom, stage 2. We figure out sanitation, medicine gets way better, and the death rate just plummets. But people are still having lots of kids. And that right there, that's your population explosion. Finally, we get to stage 3. Societies get wealthier, more urban, more educated, and birth rates start to drop, eventually matching the low death rates. Things level off. But, and this is a big but, this creates a whole new problem. You end up with a much older population and not as many young people to support them, which is a puzzle a lot of countries are wrestling with today. Which brings us right back to the here and now, and to the biggest question of all, what's next? Are we heading for a nice, stable population, or are we in a collision course with a resource crisis? And believe me, people have been arguing about this for a very long time. Way back, more than 200 years ago, this guy, an economist named Thomas Malthus, put out this really famous and kind of scary warning. He said, look, population grows geometrically. It goes 2, then 4, 8, 16, it just doubles and doubles. But our food supply, that only grows arithmetically. 2, 4, 6, 8, it just adds a little at a time. He predicted that eventually there'd be way more people than food and it would all end in disaster. Now, Malthus couldn't have possibly predicted things like the Green Revolution in farming or modern medicine and family planning. Today, we have a whole toolkit to manage population. We're talking about things like access to contraceptives, better education, empowering women to make their own choices, delaying marriage, even things like tax rules that favor smaller families. These are all tools that let us actively shape what our future looks like. And so that's where we're left. We've got this one planet with only so much stuff on it, but we also seem to have this endless capacity for creativity and problem solving. So as we move forward on this wild population journey, which one wins out? Will our technology and our planning help us find a way to live in balance? Or was Malthus onto something, and do we still need to worry about those fundamental limits? That really is the ultimate question for all of us, isn't it?